Hello everyone, welcome to the history of video games in under 10 minutes. Please sit down and relax as I tell you the history of video games in under 10 minutes. We're going to start off a little fast with the first video game ever, Tennis for Two. This is created by this guy here on the screen, and played a little bit like tennis, but really simple. Moving on to the next game, this was Space Wars, created by MIT in the 60s. This game featured two spaceships that fought each other, and not much else. Pretty simple. Later on, this company called Atari would come out and attempt to release a game, but before they did, the Magnavox Odyssey happened. It was the first home console, and it was alright. Pretty technically limited, but it just happened. Then after that, they released two games. One was kind of like Space Wars, but no one liked it, and the other one was Pong. Everyone loved Pong. Pong was everywhere, and there's still people playing Pong to this day. After Pong came out, some other various arcade cabinets released, such as Breakout, Space Invaders, Galaxian, Pac-Man, and Donkey Kong. Then after that, Atari released the 2600. It was an 8-bit console that raised tons of money for Atari, but did also hinder a lot of the games that were released on it, due to the technical limitations of the console itself. Later on, the Microvision would come out. This would be the world's first handheld console. It would cost consumers about $50 and sold moderately okay, and had a few games released for it. Then, the first personal computer came out, the Commodore 64. A lot of people liked it, sold 13 million units, then everyone forgot about it because it was bad. Then, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or otherwise known as the Famicom in Japan, came out in 1983. This is where Super Mario Bros. Came from. Everyone loves Super Mario Bros. And without the NES, a lot of video games as we know it probably wouldn't exist. Just like the 1988 Sega Genesis. This was the first 16-bit console, and this would really start the bit wars. It had twice as many bits as the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it also had its own very edgy games to it, such as Sonic and Mortal Kombat. Later though, Nintendo would release the Game Boy in 1989. This would be their version of the handheld console market, and a lot of people loved it, and a lot of people still love it. But next year in 1990, they released the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the SNES. This would also have Mario Bros. On it, but it would also come out with Mario Kart and Star Fox. All those series would start on the SNES. After the SNES, the Sega Saturn would release. It was a 32-bit console, and it sold a little bit, but a lot of people in the States did not like it, because literally, in like the next month, the PlayStation 1 released, which overshadowed basically everything that came around this time, selling over 100,000 units in the first weekend of retail alone. Then, later on, in 1995, Nintendo would release its worst console yet, the Virtual Boy. Only sold 770,000 total units worldwide, and only 10 games were released for the system. No one bought it, and no one liked it. Moving on. 1996, Nintendo 64 came out. The issue with the 64 is that it used cartridges, and everyone was done with cartridges at this time. So the Nintendo 64 also kind of struggled, but it at least sold 30 million units, which is pretty good for the time. However, the Nintendo 64 and PS1 were the real first steps into 3D gaming. This would set the precedent for all future consoles to have 3D aspects in every single one of them, such as the 1998 Sega Dreamcast, which was the first console to have internet connectivity. But the PS2 would completely overshadow the Sega Dreamcast 2 years later in March 4th of 2000, and it would sell well over 150 million consoles worldwide. This would also be the console where GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas would all come about, all of which were made by Rockstar Games, who still makes the series to this day. Then next year, GameCube came out, and no one really bought it. It was only selling 21 million units, less than the 64. But then the Xbox came out. Now, Microsoft had never been in the gaming console region before, and they're like, we want money, so let's do it. And they released the Xbox. A lot of people liked it, but a lot of people also complained the console was big and bulky. But it still managed to sell 1.5 million units in about 2 months, which is really good. Eventually, in 2004, the Nintendo DS would come out. This would be the successor to the Nintendo Game Boy and would be Nintendo's most profitable console for a long time, with a family of DS products selling over 154 million units worldwide. Then in 2005, the PSP would come out. This was PlayStation's attempt to get in the handheld market. They would be really good at first, selling 80 million units with the first edition of the console, but then they'd release the PS Vita in 2011 and it only sold about 10 million units. Then in 2005, the Xbox 360 came out. At first everyone liked it, then everyone's console started dying with the red ring of death, and a lot of people weren't happy about that. But inevitably they'd fix these issues and 85 million units would be sold over its lifespan. Let's also not forget Xbox Live! But then in 2006 the PS3 came out and would overshadow it just a little bit with 87 million units sold. But trumping all of them was the 2006 Nintendo Wii. The Wii would go on to sell over 100 million units to date, and even had GameCube support, which a lot of people liked. That way they didn't have to buy a GameCube. After that though, in 2009, a game called Minecraft released. This would be a very popular computer game that would soon transport over to the Xbox consoles, and PS and all the other consoles would soon follow afterwards. Then, in 2011, the Nintendo 3DS came out. This was the successor to the Nintendo DS, and this family line would go on to sell 75 million units. But in 2012, Nintendo would make another flop, the Wii U. It would only sell 13 million units, doing worse than the GameCube, unfortunately. Then in 2013, PlayStation 4 came out and trumped everyone. 117 million units were sold. Then Xbox One came out in 2013, literally a week later, and Microsoft was not happy with how this turned out. They've been supporting it for a long time and still continue to support it, but now that the Xbox One X and One S has come out, the original Xbox One has phased out. In 2017, Nintendo released their newest console, the Nintendo Switch. This revolutionary console combined the greatest aspects of a handheld and the best aspects of a console. 1. Portability, and 2. The ability to play on the big screen. With the ability to place the Switch into a dock, which connected directly to a TV, you could simply take the Switch anywhere you wanted to, and then at the end of the day, come back and put it on the TV. This feature was the main selling point of the Switch, and I believe it is one of the greatest features of all time. However, there is a version of the Switch Lite, that doesn't allow to be connected to the TV. It is sold as a budget model, so that's somewhat understandable, but in my opinion, it's kinda not worth it when you could buy a used Switch for a similar price. What also came out was the Switch OLED model. I think it's a little bit expensive, but to be honest, the upgrades they've made, they do make it worth it. While I don't have one myself, I may plan on getting one very soon. Now for the last section of this video, the 8th generation of consoles. Now, there's only 2 consoles that are here right now in the 8th generation, and that are the Xbox Series X/S and the PlayStation 1. Now, for the Xbox side, I don't particularly see a reason for people who already have an Xbox to upgrade to that system, but for people on the other side who don't have one, I would recommend getting that over an Xbox One. But on the PS5 side, a lot of positives have come out from over there. They have a lot more game exclusives, but the power of the Xbox Series X is larger, so it's really up to the gamer to decide which console they'd like to buy. However, whatever they choose, they'll all be participating in the history of video games. I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I would like to thank Tyler Brosio and Peter Bodger for helping out with the project, for doing extensive research and helping come up with the script, and I hope to see you all soon.